I want to talk to you about education and the purpose of learning. And we go through school and all the way to college, and then afterwards we're like, what do we do? So now that you have this education, whether it be school, college, or going to networking meetings, masterminds, now what? Now what are you going to do with it? Because all of us, including myself, guilty of spending hundreds of thousands in masterminds, in personal development, buying tons of books, buying tons of courses that we really hardly ever use. So let's look at the word education, what it was meant to be. So when I looked up the word education, there were a few definitions. One of them was basically the process of receiving or giving instructions, like at a school, or university, like a new system of public education, which we know that public education was, I'm looking for my pen. Where's my pen? Public education was really funded by those who owned the manufacturing plants because they wanted to train you and educate you to run those belts, right? Those to work in the widget factory, so to speak. So let's look at that, right? Education. So one definition of education, right, is train and give instructions. That's one definition of education, to literally train and give education, right? Now, the next definition I found for education came from a Latin word, educare, right? And it was spelled like this, educare. And educare did not mean to train. It basically meant to lead out. Basically to pull out that which is already in you. And I thought that was interesting. I'm like, man, to pull out of you. So, and that would make more sense. Not meaning that that you already know everything, because we don't know everything under the sun already, right? Collectively, maybe we do. But let's say, for instance, if, let me give you two examples. So let's say you go to school and you learn about Christopher Columbus. Even though it's totally not true, it's false, and the story just sounds, when you read between the lines, the story sounds kind of tragic, to be honest with you. And it makes education dull and boring. And after a while, youth in particular who still are thinking before they get conditioned not to think, they say to themselves, man, somebody's lying, or it's a freaking tragic story, right? Why are we celebrating this? So what's the purpose of that, right? And if you do the research, especially children of color, by the time they get to the third grade, they're bummed out with education. They have no interest whatsoever. And it's because it's not helping to foster and to nurture what's already in them. We learned about, George Washington chopping down the cherry tree. What does that do for you, right? And there's a meaning behind that for sure, but they're not teaching that, right? So let's say, for instance, education that matters, you and I will retain it more, right? I don't care if it's a course, it's a mastermind, it's a network meeting, you're gonna retain it more. Let's say, I remember working with a friend, and they have a credit repair company, and they had bought a course for, I think, $5,000. And this course was to help them, because they were really busting their butts doing all the work for their clients, like not having hardly any free time. So they bought this course, and this course showed them how to systematize their training into a group training or into a higher level ticket. They took that course and crushed it, right? Because they already had the information about the credit repair in them. They just needed a system to systematize it, right? So it actually pulled the information out of them. You follow what I'm saying? So let's say, for instance, if you grew up in a family where they were wealthy and they owned an NBA team, right? Do you think, how motivated do you think you would be to retain that information? You would be extremely motivated to retain that information. Let's say they owned a software company, a tech firm or something like that, or a law firm. You're going to be extremely motivated. Now, of course, some children go off the rails because they're too spoiled, and then maybe they have the silver spoon. But for the most part, when you get to school, especially if you've been conditioned and nurtured in that way, when you get to school, you have a purpose. I need to learn this in order to help my family's business. I need to learn this in order to take care of my family and to keep the legacy going, correct? As in another example, you grew up in abject poverty. You coming from another country. When you get to America, you don't care how boring the information is. You don't even care if it's true or not. You just know, you know what? This right here is going to help me get to the next level for my family. It's going to help me. It's going to give me a sense of freedom. It's going to give me income and financial freedom. And so people tend to be motivated a lot more as opposed to people who are right here, who have the same educational system, right? Who know that it's not true. Most of it's, the American dream may not seem attainable because once you get this education, you're still wondering like, what do I do? What job application do I fill out, right? But because you went to school without having a purpose, it's not like all colleges are just horrible or all professors are bad. It's just our intent is not there, right? So, think about this, right? If your family's life depended on you learning something, I guarantee you would be much more motivated to learn it. So there's a questionnaire that you should have completed, right? This questionnaire is really about protecting your business. It's about protecting your cash flow. And in today's time, unfortunately, your cash flow is like your life force. Once that's cut off, you can't do anything in America. And here's the other thing about it. Because of how our society is, because of how our culture is, once your income is cut off, no one's coming to save you. I'm telling you that from personal experience. No one is coming to save you. So once you complete, and there should be a link somewhere here below, once you complete the questionnaire that basically asks you a few questions, it takes a few minutes to complete, what level are you at in terms of protecting your cash flow, you will receive a customized ebook based upon those answers, and then we'll go further from there. So make sure you fill out the questionnaire. Now you should have a purpose of taking that questionnaire. It should not just seem like some random questionnaire. This questionnaire is to help you protect your cash flow, protect your life force. Thanks for tuning in. Be good.